Hear, hear. Hear, hear. Hear, hear. Parkinson's Podcast. Welcome to the Hear, Hear Parkinson's Podcast, where you will hear from special guests covering the world of Parkinson's with a deep dive on the World Parkinson Congress and a look at how the WPC has helped make extraordinary progress in the Parkinson's community by creating space for people with Parkinson's to have a seat at the table.
Here, 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 here. We are back with another episode in our podcast, Here, Here, which will lead us all up to participating at the next big Congress in Phoenix, Arizona at the end of May this year. And this week, we're happy to have a guest on board again. Our very special guest this week is Daniel Corcos from Chicago. Very welcome on board, Daniel.
Thank you, Edgar. Thank you, Eli. It is just great to be here. Really great to be here.
And for those who are coming by and wondering who is this doing things, my name is Edgar Valdmanis. I'm a WPC ambassador, currently living in Norway, and bi-weekly producing this podcast together with Eli Pollard, our executive director.
Thanks,
So
Edgar. I'm just the sidekick. Edgar runs the show. I get to just come along for the ride. But thank you, Edgar.
Most welcome. Now that we've everyone properly presented, I think you could kick it all off, Daniel, by you will be on stage at the WPC on the Wednesday, speaking about exercise as one of several presenters on the topic. Because I was told that there is a choice between a red pill and a blue pill, but you say that there's not. Exercise is what does it.
There's no pill. There's no red pill or blue pill. You just have to do the work. Tell us, Daniel, what are we going to hear from you at the Congress?
Well, on my plenary talk, you will hear clear, striking evidence from 4 major studies that if you are able to and willing to work out 3 to 4 times a week for 30 minutes with your heart rate elevated, high-intensity heart rate exercise, that the evidence is clear that you will probably slow your disease progression. This has been shown on 4 separate studies now. And so you can ask yourself the question, why is this? Okay. Well, if you look at pills, and it would be great to have an exercise pill, and the person who invents the exercise pill, the company will make a lot of money.
Yes.
Pills tend to target 1 or 2 molecules exclusively. Exercise doesn't. It's a pluripotent pill. So we have an endocrine system, we have a neurotrophic system, we have an inflammatory system. You can have a pill which targets 1 of those 3. But we don't have a pill which targets them all. And we don't know which one is most important necessarily for you. Some people may have a neurotrophic problem, some may have an endocrine problem, some may have elevated inflammation. Parkinson's disease, as you will learn at the conference, is a disease of inflammation. People with Parkinson's tend to have elevated inflammation. It tends to increase with disease duration, and there are clear studies which show endurance exercise reduces it. So I'll be walking through these 4 studies. I'll also add a little bit to the previous study and show that there is a clear biological basis for thinking that it does slow disease progression.
Well, that's excellent. How much does it slow the progress? Is there a way to measure this? I'm being serious now after a kind of joking intro to this talk. But on the serious side, is there a way to measure how far sort of down the road I am? And
that's a very good question, Edgar. So let me make several points. The first is everybody with Parkinson's disease is different. So it is not by any means clear that each and everybody will get exactly the same benefit. But this is also true, for example, of dopamine replacement therapy. It is not that on the day of diagnosis, your pill will be X and you'll take it Y times a day. It is individual. It's the same with deep brain stimulation. You will have parameters tuned to your brain. So point number one is everybody will benefit in different ways. Okay. Point number two, you can kind of measure how you benefit in different ways. So the standard way to measure disease progression is with the Clinical Movement Disorders Society Unified Parkinson's Disease Rating Scale. That is still the gold standard for clinical trials, and it or its predecessor, the Unified Parkinson's Disease Rating Scale, has been used on neuroprotective studies since 1989. And so what this measures is how quickly you can move your fingers, rotate your hand, tap your foot, your resistance to being pulled backwards, various other tests. And the data shows that you will progress about 2 to 3 points per year more slowly. 2 to 3 points doesn't sound very much. But if you have your disease for 20 years, at the end of 20 years, now it may not be a 60-point change because it may slow over time, but there's no question that even a 1-point change over 10 years is a 10-point change.
Yeah.
And what is really important about this, and I really want to stress this, is there are two important ways to consider the benefit of science. One is on clinical trials. I will show you 4 clinical trials which provide compelling evidence. I just went up to Lake Forest in Chicago on Tuesday, and I talked to 109 people with Parkinson's disease, and they all tell me how much better they feel when they do their exercise. This may not work for everybody. I have friends who will do a workout and they feel really great afterwards. They get a high, and if they don't get their exercise session in for a day, they are really grumpy.
It's called dopamine.
And by the way, for those of you who come find me at the World Parkinson Congress and ask me who are the grumpy ones, I will introduce you to them. These are my friends who get a great benefit, an acute benefit. So if they work out in the day, they have a better day. If they don't work out in the day, they may not have a better day. Here I'm talking about the long-term cumulative beneficial effect. And so I can't guarantee that it will work for you the way that it works for everybody else. I can guarantee you right now it's where the best data lies. And I hope I'm wrong here. I would like nothing more than to be proved wrong. The advent of a pill is not within the next year or two. I think it is going to be a little while before we put together. There are some candidate biomarkers that are being investigated. You'll learn about them. They're talked about a lot, but I think we are a little bit away from that.
I'm sure we are. My
Right.
gosh. Daniel, I have a question for you. I've never heard your sort of, not that we're going to go down a complete rabbit hole, but your sort of origin story on how did you actually come to exercise and Parkinson's? What was it that sparked this for you? Because you're just the Parkinson's exercise guru, but what were you before you were the Parkinson's exercise guru? How did you get to this place?
My academic career started at looking how healthy young people perform movement. So if you're going to move from point A to B, if I'm going to pick up a cup of coffee, if I'm going to lift a weight, the question becomes, how does the brain activate muscle? So you have what are called motor units. Motor units need to be recruited. They can be recruited for longer times. They can be recruited at higher frequencies. They can be synchronized. So my early studies were on young, healthy people. I then came across an article when I was writing a paper in a physical therapy journal in which I went and looked at different diseases. And lo and behold, people with Parkinson's disease have what is called a fractionated pattern of activation. They don't have a long synchronized burst. It comes in little short bursts. And so I asked myself, well, if muscle activation patterns are abnormal, what can one do? And so I wrote a grant about this, and I had the privilege of going to Queen Square in London. So between 1994 and 1995, I spent a year at Queen Square, which is a wonderful place to go. In many ways, it is the home of academic neurology. If you go there, you'll see wards with names of very, very famous neurologists. I also had the privilege then of being able to meet Professor C.D. Marsden,
Mm.
who, and people can argue this. I'm quite sure Eli would be able to say, no, Professor Marsden isn't perhaps the most important neurologist of the last many decades. He's certainly in the top five. I think that is unarguable.
Yeah.
He spent a lot of time working on papers of muscle activation.
Mm.
He was a kind of a Renaissance man. He was an expert on neurology, an expert on pharmacology, and also on movement science. And he had the benefit of working with some very, very gifted scientists at Queen Square, one of whom is one of my good friends, John Rothwell, who has published a vast amount on what goes wrong in the brain. So once we've established that the muscle activation pattern is abnormal, we also showed back in the mid 90s that people with Parkinson's disease are weak off medication. So you have a deficit in neural input, which causes a reduction in strength. Then it became obvious to try to do intervention studies. My first main intervention study was published in 2013 in Movement Disorders, which showed that progressive resistance exercise affects the symptoms of Parkinson's, it reduces them, it makes you stronger. And in 2015, we had the paper of the year published on improving cognition. So what is very important is that resistance exercise is also very important, as well as endurance, and it affects not only motor symptoms, but cognition. And I talk a lot with people with Parkinson's, and yes, tremor's annoying, and yes, tremor's embarrassing, and yet postural instability is no fun. But it is the progression from mild cognitive impairment to possibly dementia, which many people, by the way, this is true of everybody, including myself, okay, that anything we can do to maintain our ability to interact with our friends, which requires cognition, ends up at the top end of priorities. And so I'm very interested in using exercise as a means to maintain one's intellect, one's brain, one's ability to communicate with one's loved ones.
So was that surprising when you saw that the resistance exercise impacted or improved cognition? Were you expecting that, or was that an outcome that surprised you?
It didn't surprise us. There is evidence from other
Yeah.
populations. It wasn't the main point, but we had three cognitive measures, and we felt for a long time, and I was then working with neurologists who are very interested in cognition, and there've been many working groups of neurologists on cognition. And in fact, my colleagues and I are writing a paper on advice to patients in my clinic to help with cognition, which we hope will be out at the end of the year. And the lead author on that is Dr. Michelle Kalisaya. And you will
Familiar.
have the pleasure of meeting Dr. Kalisaya at the conference. She's from Australia. She's a person with Parkinson's disease who happens to be a physical therapist and gifted scientist. So she understands the science, the intervention, and has lived experience, which brings it all together. I will put a plug for her. For those of you who love to run, for those of you who have foot dystonia, she wrote a great paper in 2026 on how to get rid of, intentional pun here, running induced dystonia. So, how to get rid of RID. And for those of you who like to run, especially if you're young onset, you'll find there's a table in there which walks through different ways you can help mitigate the side effect of the dystonia.
I'm definitely going to follow up
Wow.
with her on that.
So there's a kind of a 3 for 2 here, if I hear you right, of all the benefits coming from something simple as get up from the sofa and do some exercise. Is that correct, Daniel? That it helps both with the disease as such, cognition, and a couple of other good effects.
Well, I think the effects are, and again, I'm not going to say each and everybody feels this to the same level, but
No.
there's evidence that exercise can improve cognition or certainly lifestyle and exercise. There is this kind of vicious circle, and it's a question of knowing how to intervene. People with Parkinson's have apathy, they have depression, they have anxiety. And so you end up here with the chicken and egg situation. Well, if I am depressed and if I am apathetic and if I have anxiety, how am I going to exercise? But it turns out that exercise can be therapeutically beneficial. And so one of the challenges sometimes is to find clinicians who can help you with what these are all called non-motor symptoms. And so if you have depression and if you just can't get going, or if you are anxious in a crowd, some people love to go to the gym and meet their friends and work out, and others like to work out in the privacy of their home. And so sometimes you may need a physician, a neuropsychologist, even possibly a psychiatrist to help you get into, a frame of mind from which you can exercise. But you can look at every single disease. You can look at the improvements of cardiovascular health and what cardiologists do. You can look at metabolic syndrome. You can look at cancer. If you go into cancer, yeah, if you go into cancer and you're in the best shape you can be, you will come out from cancer much better than if you go in bad physical shape.
Yeah.
Right. We will do a quick break here for a word from our sponsor. Do not turn off. Stay tuned. We will be back in a minute or so with more from Daniel Corcos.
This episode is brought to you by two of our friends who are sponsoring the World Parkinson Congress, our friends at Blue Rock Therapeutics and our friends at Rune Labs. I'm excited to tell you a little bit about both of these great partners. Blue Rock Therapeutics is a clinical stage cell therapy company focused on developing cellular medicines for people living with neurological and ophthalmic diseases. Blue Rock's investigational cell therapy for the treatment of Parkinson's is currently being tested in a phase 3 clinical trial called Expedite 2. You can learn more about that trial and other things that Blue Rock is doing on their website at www.bluerocktx.com. Now, our other sponsor for this podcast, our friends at Rune Labs. Let me tell you a little bit about what they're doing. Strive PD is a free app powered by Rune Labs that uses FDA-cleared Apple Watch and iPhone movement data. Strive PD helps people with Parkinson's understand their symptoms, optimize their therapy, and stay connected to their care team. For premium access, Strive PD Guardian provides proactive coaching and personalized AI reports that offer support between visits, helping individuals improve quality of life and receive the right treatment at the right time. Download Strive PD for free on the Apple App Store, or you can visit their website to learn more and also download it straight from their website at www.strivepd.com today. I'm excited to say you will be able to visit with both of these companies at the upcoming 7th World Parkinson Congress in the exhibit hall, as they will both be exhibiting. Now, back to our podcast.
I do look forward to
so we are
meeting
back.
you in Phoenix very much.
So we're back in this week's episode of Here, Here, the podcast that will lead us up to meeting each other in Phoenix. And this week's guest is Danielle Corcos, speaking further about the benefits of exercise.
I have another question for you, Daniel. So I started at the WPC in 2004. And it wasn't that far before then. So I don't know if it was the 90s, you would know better than I would, but I heard that there was a long period of time where people with Parkinson's were told not to exercise because it was considered potentially dangerous for them. They may fall. And I don't know when that evolution, when that changed, when it was like, okay, wait, actually, it is actually better for you to exercise than to not exercise. You've been around long enough to have seen or recognize that sort of change and shift. And like in the beginning, when you started looking at exercise in Parkinson's, was there a barrier? Did people think you were kind of crazy? Like, no, people with Parkinson's shouldn't be exercising at all. Daniel, why are you focusing on this? Or was it always, like, what kind of barriers did you come up against? And I think there are people with Parkinson's that think it's crazy when I tell them there was a period where you were told not to exercise, and they're like, what are you talking about? I was like, yeah, because people didn't always know. It wasn't always known that exercise would be so helpful. But you've been around long enough to see this evolution. Well, what changes, and what kind of barriers have you had to overcome just to convince people that exercise really is, the golden ticket?
Okay.
So, John Stossel is the editor of Movement Disorders, and he was very kind and invited me to write a perspective paper, which I am currently writing.
Okay.
Movement Disorders started in 1986, and this is its 40th anniversary. And Eli, by the way, is always super prescient, okay? And so up until 2002, there were no articles published in movement disorders which were really advocating even activity. So you have physical activity, you have exercise, and then you get what you are taught by the allied health professions, which includes physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech therapy from speech-language pathologists. There were 2 reviews which hinted at it might be beneficial, but it certainly wasn't strong evidence. Following 2002, there have been more than 100 articles just in movement disorders alone, demonstrating clear benefits of exercise. And the evidence is building across all the major Parkinson's journals. There are probably 10, 15 of them. Now, there have been two major kind of roadblocks in the way, okay, or maybe three roadblocks in the way. And they're important to understand because some are still here. It is the case that if your goal is to minimize falls, the best thing to do is not to get out of bed all day or to go straight to a chair. And if you go in too many skilled nursing facilities, you will see people do nothing all day.
Right.
If that's your goal, okay?
Yeah.
It is the case, and we found this in my study Sparks 2, which is a 2018 publication providing clear evidence. So out in Colorado, the people in Sparks 2 were getting quite fit. They got a lot of confidence. Some of them went back out on their mountain treks. And yes, a couple fell over. And so we have to be careful about falling. A hip fracture is a nightmare. People with Parkinson's are more prone to osteoporosis. And so as we get fitter and as we want to do more and as we want to go running around with our grandchildren, we do have to be aware that we are at a heightened risk to fall. But,
Right.
okay, it used to be in the 50s that after heart surgery, it was bed rest for 6 weeks. Now, if you have all forms of heart-related therapy, is very similar to what we're recommending here. And so the heart benefits from exercise, the lung benefits, the brain benefits. So it's a trade-off. It is also the case that in terms of working out at 80 to 85%, back in 2012, when I wrote the Sparks 2 grant with my colleagues, there was a very strong feeling among many physicians, and there still is, that people with Parkinson's disease can't exercise at high intensity. So in that study, we ran 128 people. They all had a cardiopulmonary exercise test, all had EKG leads on, and it was all overseen by cardiologists, and we had no problem. And we have now run 358 people through Sparks 3, and we've had no problems. It is true when you run 358 that you do refer 1 or 2 people to cardiology for clearance for exercise, but that's just smart, good practice. So for any of you who are listening to me, don't suddenly go out and exercise like crazy if you've never done it before,
Right.
because this has nothing to do with Parkinson's disease, by the way. Nobody should suddenly go and overexert themselves without at least some elementary form of medical clearance. And if you have a history of heart problems, then it needs to be titrated.
Yeah.
But the evidence is clear. It is so crystal clear.
I love it. And I think your message is, oh gosh, I mean, this has been a big part of the World Parkinson Congress, right? Is we have an entire renewal room where movement and exercise is going on the entire day. And we always encourage people when they come to the Congress to pop into the renewal room and do an exercise class. We also this time have a pickleball room and we have a ping pong room because movement is so incredibly important that we just weave it into the whole conference. And I always tell people, it's not just for the people with Parkinson's. Our neurologists and doctors and nurses and everyone else should also be exercising and moving during the conference. You shouldn't just come and sit all day and listen to talks, but you should also go play a little ping pong and play some pickleball and move. And we do try to model that throughout the Congress. So it's the whole package experience. Learn and move at this, all at the same time.
I did promise Eli and Edgar at the beginning of this podcast that I would behave. Unfortunately, Eli has prompted me or prodded me not to behave. You should all ask yourself the question, okay? If my primary care provider, neurologist, or movement disorder specialist who is treating me for Parkinson's disease doesn't exercise themselves, just how clever are they?
So this is the challenge to grab your neurologist or your movement disorder nurse or whoever and bring them into the ping pong room and challenge them for a bout at the WPC.
Well, absolutely. I can tell you I had the very distinct pleasure 18 months ago of running into Baz Bloom at 6 a.m. in a gym in Boston. And Baz was on the weights and Baz was on the cardio. And he's a
Mm.
distinguished neurologist.
Yes.
My other friend, Dr. Guillaume Lamotte, said that if he had Parkinson's disease and if he had money, he would live his life on a treadmill and avoid all toxins. So this is the message
Oh, but
that,
that's a quote I actually heard from Bas Bloom back in Barcelona. One of the Norwegian participants asked Bas Bloom one of the days down in Barcelona what happened, what would he do if he was diagnosed with Parkinson's, because she is diagnosed. And then Bas said this about moving in on top of a treadmill and just eating organic food.
well, it's quite possible my friend Guillaume heard it from Baz. So who actually came up with this first? But they're both terrific neurologists, terrific movement disorder specialists, and they
Yeah,
practice what they preach. And by the
yeah,
way, if you ever meet them, they're in good shape.
Yes, they
Very
are.
yeah.
good.
They
Amazing.
are, yeah. Oh, well, I only know Bass, so but yes, he's in terrific shape, and I'm kind of wondering what can I do to look half as good as he does. But then the difference possibly is that I have Parkinson's, he doesn't.
You're,
Well, I can tell you, Edgar, I am not a movement disorder specialist. Okay, I'm a PhD, and so I don't diagnose people. But I think you look great. Okay, and I think that whatever you're doing um, is doing you the world of good.
keep
Thank you,
doing
thank
it.
you.
Keep doing it. I have a question, Daniel, for the WPC. I know that at the last WPC there was an emergency and you weren't able to join us in Barcelona at the last minute. So I can't remember previous WPCs that you've attended, but what are you what are you looking forward to with the WPC? Is there anything in particular you're coming to see updates on, or just, I mean, is there something specific you're really eager to see that's that you've got on your calendar for the WPC?
Oh, I've got it all on my calendar. In fact, my current problem is we're going to have a group of people coming in and they all want to meet. And I'm trying to ask myself, do we even have time? Should we set up a meeting at another place? The program is packed.
Yeah.
It goes from very basic science, which will be presented in a way that's digestible for most people, to very, very applied ways to help on a daily basis. I think the real brilliance of WPC is it spans every level. You have very actively involved people who live with the disease, and then you've got a group of scientists whose passion is to help people with the disease. And you've got people like my good friend Michelle Calais-Sire and David Black. David Black is a neurologist who happens
Mm.
to have Parkinson's disease and who sent me a wonderful email one day. Every once in a while, when I'm talking to people, I kind of say any exercise is better than nothing. And it's true, okay? But David chastised me and said, when I prescribe medication, I tell people what to do. It's this number of pills at this dose. And so the frequency is known. And when you talk to people with Parkinson's disease, you should tell them what's best for them. And so nowadays, I tend to be very, very prescriptive. And then it's up to each and every person to decide what is best for them. What can they do? What are they willing to do? And I
Mm.
realize, I talk to people as young as mid 20s you can get Parkinson's disease in your mid-20s, all the way up to their late 80s. I've got a good friend, he's just turned 90. So it's a disease that covers the whole age range. I mean, it's well known that the average age of onset is about 65, but what is less well known is how young you can be. And also that you can live, well into your 90s and still have a great life. And I think, that's something which, you will see at the World Parkinson Congress. You will see people in their 70s, 80s, and 90s having a good time. They'll be out exercising, and hopefully there'll be a few of them in karaoke bars. So I think this is going to be great.
We are nearing the end of this fantastic talk, Daniel. Couple of questions at the end here. One, have you considered joining the bike group? It is starting in Seattle and will be the last ice. How it is, they will be on their bikes for 37 days, going from Seattle down to Phoenix.
So this is a very interesting question. Okay. Exercise is good for you. There's no question exercise is good for you. It is also the case that one can over-exercise. Okay. There are examples of this. There's been a recent paper published, and I wrote a rebuttal to that. Okay. So exercise is good. High-intensity exercise is good. I have atrial fibrillation. I've had 2 ablations and 1 cardioversion. It was related to this that I couldn't come to Barcelona. And there is evidence that if you really exercise a lot, I'm talking a lot. So I went through a period of time when I was cycling 10,000 miles a year, 250 miles a week. So I would love to join that ride. And I've got friends leaving out of Chicago. I've got friends leaving out of Seattle. I've got a very good friend, Bill Bucklew, who will be there. There's a group leaving out of Salt Lake City, where I spend a lot of my time. But I have titrated my exercise back to pretty much the Parkinson's prescription because I am concerned about provoking atrial fibrillation. And there is a wonderful book on this. It's called The Haywire Heart. And so don't get worried about this, everybody listening. I mean, this was a lot of exercise. We're talking about people like in Norway, if they do really serious cross-country skiing all the year round, they're phenomenally fit. They're some of the world's fittest people. If you do 50-mile runs, 100-mile runs, if you've got your heart going, there's no guarantee you'll get atrial fib. But to answer your question, and this is the longest answer ever to a question, let me put it to you this way. My heart will be with all the cyclists, but for the good of my heart, it won't be with all the cyclists.
Good answer, Daniel. Good answer. We want to see you 100% healthy and upright and not having any AFib. So no cycling for you from Seattle to Phoenix. But if you're in Phoenix the Friday before the Congress when the cyclists arrive, you are more than welcome to be there at the finish line with us, applauding them and welcoming them.
Yeah.
Well, being with you and Edgar would be great. One of the world's privileges.
Looking forward to it. Okay, we have 2 compulsory questions for each participant in our podcast. The first one is, you're stranded on a deserted island. Instead of you and a palm tree, except over there you see a record player. Traditional one. Although this one is solar powered. And then if you could have only one record to play, which would it be?
I think
Is
it would
it a
be
single or a full album?
Well, I have to be very careful. I mean, I'm going to get myself into trouble for saying this. I'm a Rolling Stones fan.
Hey.
I think Sympathy for the Devil is a great song, but I understand that the lyrics for some people are disturbing.
That's
But
okay.
I
It's
could
you
only
alone. It's you alone on the deserted island. You can listen to whatever you
then
want.
then I would take Sympathy for the Devil by the Rolling Stones.
Excellent stuff, excellent. Have you actually heard the latest album that they released just about a year ago?
Oh yes, I heard the album. I saw their most recent concert in London and Chicago, along with my
Oh,
family.
So great.
so great. Good. Absolutely final question of today's podcast is you're stuck in an elevator between two floors. Who do you want to be stuck with?
My wife.
Great answer.
Ah.
There's no right or wrong answer, but that's a good answer.
No, that's sort of an easy out.
Well, I look forward to meeting your wife at the Congress because I know she's coming because we've had a few phone calls about the travels. So I look forward to meeting her in person.
Yes.
Okay.
So what is very interesting is that my wife has had several friends of hers diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. And as all of you know, there's a school of thought that it's a pandemic. Certainly, as people age, the probability goes higher. And she has several friends, and she finds she can help them because she has an insight now which she did not have. She will be at the conference, and she will be looking forward to seeing people.
That's great. I hope she encouraged one or two of her friends to come because they'll be a great learning experience if they're together.
Oh no, absolutely. One of her friends is coming from Portland, Oregon. It's a very nice story. The lady was her choir and music teacher. My wife is in a choir. She's a cantor for church, and they will both be there. And it turns out that singing is very, very good for people with Parkinson's disease. So they'll have a good time. We'll have a good time.
Amazing.
Good.
So fun.
Look forward to seeing you and all our listeners at the Congress in Phoenix, Arizona. Thank you.
Thanks,
Well,
Daniel.
Thank you both very much, and thanks to our very generous sponsors.
Thank you for listening to the Hear Hear Parkinson's podcast. We hope today's conversation inspired you. If you'd like to experience the energy, connection, and impact of the global Parkinson's community firsthand, join us at the 7th World Parkinson Congress, May 24th to the 27th, 2026 in Phoenix, Arizona. Learn more at wpc2026.org. This podcast series is made possible with support from Blue Rock Therapeutics and Rune Labs.